a tech consultant for the last 12 years, I've been helping brands and agencies digitally transform their businesses. So, after literally billions of dollars spent in advertising, what does that digital transformation journey look like? Well, surprisingly, there is a single framework, a 4-step digital transformation framework that works for businesses of all sizes. But I'll come to that in just a second. Before that, I'm going to tell you something about me. I spent the last 12 months going through a transformation of my own, transforming into a mother, or a caregiver, should I say. On one of the very long, lonely, and sleepless nights, I experienced an aha moment. And I realized the remarkable similarity between the transformation of motherhood over the years and the digital transformation process of businesses. So, what is this magical 4-step process of transformation that both mothers and businesses share? Well, it looks like this. The 4 steps are nascent, emerging, connected, and multi-moment. So, firstly, nascent. What does it mean, being nascent? Well, for an advertiser, it essentially means having online ads. Let's say you're searching for hotels in Antalya, in South Turkey. If you see ads for my hotel, then it's a success. I win. Quite simple, right? On the other hand, for a mother or any other primary caregiver for that matter, nascent essentially means keeping your baby alive and healthy, as you see here. For example, when my grandparents were born in the early 1900s, considering the high infant mortality rate back in the day, probably that was the only expectation from a caregiver, keeping the baby alive and healthy. Nobody was expected to raise the child ready for the Ivy League, right? And the next step is emerging. Remember that hotel in Antalya? As an emerging business owner, now I'm more capable at digital marketing. And now I know that you're interested in hotels in Antalya at this time of the year. And I can show you an ad even before you search for it, while you are reading The Guardian, for instance. On the motherhood side, however, 60, 70 years ago, let's say when my parents were born, we see that mothers are becoming much better at keeping the babies alive, thanks to the developments in medicine, living conditions, and sanitation. So at the emerging stage, both mothers and businesses are more capable at their task, which is absolutely great. And as we move another step further in the journey, businesses become connected. And this means being able to collect and utilize more data. As that hotel manager in Antalya, this time I know that you usually travel with your family and you enjoy delicious food. And while you are still reading The Guardian, it must be an incredible article, by the way, I can target you with an ad displaying a family enjoying gourmet food. I can even follow up with a family deal. On the other hand, for mothers, let's say, while my parents were raising me in the 90s, infant mortality was not a concern anymore. And the highlight of this period is the increasing involvement of women in the workplace, which is absolutely great. And this is the period at which mothers started to co-manage the workplace, household, and childcare. So things are becoming even more complicated for mothers, as it is for the businesses at the connected stage. And the final stage of the journey is multi-moment. So what does it mean, being multi-moment? It must be something very sophisticated, right? Actually, yes, it is quite sophisticated. Let's think about the hotel in Antalya for one last time. As that hotel manager, now I'm able to adjust the customer journey using dynamic data. And I'm able to automate the journey for you. Let's say I'm using the weather information in your location. And let's say it's here, Skopje. And in addition to In addition to the customized images for your interests, like the family enjoying gourmet food in a hotel in Antalya, this time I can also customize the wording as, it's still 10 degrees in Skopje. Why don't you visit Antalya? It's already 25 degrees here. And I can automatically update what you see as the temperature changes. And when the temperature gap does not make any sense, I can automatically stop targeting you. So it really is complicated, isn't it? So how do the companies achieve being multi-moment if it is so complicated? Simply by investing in additional resources. They expand their teams, buy new tools, partner with tech companies, work with consultants like me. So while the task is getting more complicated, they do have access to the necessary tools to assist them in their journey, which is absolutely great. By the way, under the presence of all these resources, do you know the percentage of companies that become multi-moment? It is only 9%, right? Only 9% of the companies are being able to reach the final stage, although having access to all these resources. Now, let's keep the 9% in mind, and let's have a look at motherhood being multi-moment. Believe me, it's even more complicated for mothers than it is for businesses. I'm sure the mothers and caregivers in the room will agree with me that in today's world, the expectations from us are far beyond simply keeping the baby alive. There's a long list of expectations instead, like keeping the nursery at 21 degrees, buying organic food, organic clothes, setting the perfect sleep routine, keeping the baby away from screens, achieving solid attachment with the baby, being patient and smiley all the time, being the perfect partner, taking care of the households, and at work, performing as before. So, the list is really endless, and I can keep going all day. As the caregivers of the modern world, we are just striving for perfection. When did we really start putting so much pressure on the mothers and caregivers? And more importantly, who set the bar? Well, during my journey, I discovered two critics. The first one is, you're not gonna like this one, but it's you, your inner voice, the one that always sets the highest possible targets and judges you all the time. Does that sound familiar? However, if there's always been an inner judge, why is the bar so much higher now? Imagine becoming a mother in a tribe 100 years ago. How would you learn parenthood? Probably you'd look around, see how others are taking care of their babies, and try to imitate them. So that's basic benchmarking, right? Now let's come back to the modern world. What do we see when we look around to set the benchmark? I tell you what I saw. I saw perfect mom influencers. I saw videos on how to raise the perfect child. I saw diaper commercials with pretty, skinny, smiley moms. All I saw was perfection, far from the real world. Thus, my inner voice went about setting an impossible benchmark for me, since the data was so misleading. Now, the other critic, or critics, are external. Right, don't tell this one to the people around you, because this is mainly your friends and family. They say it takes a village to raise a child. However, in the modern world, the people of the village, your friends and family, they are just too busy to help you with the child care. But instead, let's be honest here, they do love commenting on your caregiving. They do love sharing their best practices as if they are the global best practices of childcare. And they do love judging you accordingly. Then you find yourself trying to fulfill the best practices of every mother around you, which is of course impossible. And you are always left with the feeling of not being good enough and under the pressure to do better. Do you see the dilemma here? Although the companies do have access to increasing support and better tools every day, and still less than 10% are reaching the final stage, while mothers, on the other hand, are expected to do more without any additional resources, under the constant pressure to be perfect. So, now we have a society where mothers are aiming to be 100% multi-moment, 100% of the time, with 0% additional resources. Would anybody like to guess how that story plays out? Sadly, I don't have a secret recipe to beat the dilemma. But I do have 3 takeaways that made me stronger through my journey. And the first one is awareness. Start by becoming aware of your internal and external critics. Then you will be in charge of how to be affected by them. You may either choose to listen to the empowering ones, if there are any, hopefully there are, and you may choose to ignore the pressurizing ones. I'm sure there will be some. I'd like to share a personal one with you, one that I choose to listen to. In Turkish culture, the chubbier the baby, the better mom you are. And this is my kid. Not the chubbiest kid, I know, but chubby enough, right? Knowing that's absolutely nothing to be proud of, I can't help but feel content when someone says how chubby he is. So, if the external critic makes you feel better, as in my case, why not go ahead and listen, right? But what about the pressurizing ones? Another personal example, if I may. There is a very nice lady helping me with the household chores. She has a daughter with 3 kids. And anytime she sees me struggling with my boy, there is a voice in my head saying, her daughter manages 3 kids. Look, you're just incapable of dealing with just one. I have no idea where it came from. She never gave me any indication that she thought like this. But it's me, it's the judge in me talking to me like that. Now, being aware of my internal critic, whenever I hear that voice again, I say, yeah, that's the inner voice, and I stop listening. And the second takeaway, empowerment circles. Build an empowerment circle for yourself, a circle of love, support, and empathy. Needless to say, away from criticism, away from judgment. You don't need them. A circle that you can rely on when you feel helpless or isolated, or when you have the silliest questions in mind, like how to choose the diaper size correctly. Still, not an easy one for me, by the way. And you don't need too many people to build your circle. For me, my mother and only a few friends that became mothers before me worked the best. And I realized, apart from the practical benefits, even the conversations with your group can be really eye-opening and help reduce the pressure. The other day, I was talking to my best friend, and I said, I'm not able to put him to sleep in the crib. She immediately replied, that's not down to you, it's the baby not sleeping. Then it hits me, right, it was the baby, and I was taking way too much responsibility for the baby's actions. Since then, when I talk about the baby, I try not to start sentences with I, but with the baby instead, and it helps. And I realized the more I talk to the real-life mothers, the less I was influenced by the ideal mother figure that I was exposed to. And eventually, my benchmark data became more accurate, and the pressure was released automatically. And the last takeaway, my favorite, enjoy the journey. Thank you. I'll avoid the cliche of, you forget everything when the baby smiles. You won't. You won't forget how tired, how sleepless you are. But there are also tons of unique and joyful moments to enjoy. I occasionally journal. Since the baby was born, my repeated words are, Most tired yet happiest days of my life. I'm so glad you are with us. Every day is better than the one before. This is a once-in-a-lifetime journey that you and your baby are on. If you have another baby, it will be a different journey. So you either live the moment or it will be gone. Don't let anyone take it from you. And don't forget to encourage and empower not only yourself, but also the mothers and caregivers around you. Last but not least, while you are reading your Guardian newspaper, in that hotel in Antalya, the one that you visited after seeing the online ads, hopefully, don't forget, no matter how chubby or how skinny your child is, there is always the cute little face on top that is hungry for your attention. Yeah. And that face is only hungry for your attention, and that will remember none of your imperfections, but only the fun times you had together. Thank you.